This video is sponsored by Puriton. Hey, it's election season in America. It's time for a new global pandemic. Just kidding, it's actually quite serious. Sick children due to an unidentified pneumonia case across China. One hospital even had 13,000 appointments in 24 hours. Meanwhile, there's a rumor that Xi Jinping begged Biden for 900 billion US dollars. Is that even possible? Let me tell you. Welcome to China Insider, I'm David Zhang. There's a serious situation across China. Kids in the primary school age are ending up in the hospitals over a new mysterious pneumonia case. Now, tens of thousands are lining up for hospital treatments. Hospitals across China are overwhelmed. This is a video showing overworked nurses. Amidst hours waiting for IV drips and seeing a doctor, we're getting information across this mysterious new problem, and seems to be recalling us back to 2019, December, before the global pandemic started. Now, this took place in October, and it seems to have increased in number of cases in recent days in China. Cities like Shenyang in the northeast, Beijing, the capital, Tianjin, Chongqing, and among other cities, they've had hospitals' respiratory department working overtime around the clock. In the Tianjin No. 1 Children's Hospital, it admitted 13,171 patients in one day, breaking the highest record since the hospital was established. Images like this have been taken from hospitals in China and spreading across social media, some as recent as today and yesterday, but as far going earlier to about a month ago when this whole situation started to spiral out of control. Now, students today are either missing school or schools have suspended, and the symptoms are very important. They include high fever, high temperature, but no coughs. And according to local news sources, hospitals in Beijing City and Liaoning Province, to Shenyang, these two places are about 500 to 700 kilometers apart, depending on where. Now, they're among those overwhelmed by ill kids. Many schools, they're basically on the verge of full suspension or have already been suspended because the number of kids missing classes. And this obviously is very worrisome to infection experts. For example, one is Dr. Eric Ding. Now, those that are in line to go see the doctor or getting IV drip requires about 7 hours of wait time on average. And according to some information, that period of wait time can actually exceed 24 hours. So you get in line to get an appointment, you go home, you wait for your time, you get a ticket, and 24 hours later you come back. And there's even some information, again, we can't confirm this, you have to wait in line to get the IV drip needle to be pulled out by a nurse. So clearly they're overwhelmed. For example, in the one coastal city of Dalian, the pediatric respiratory department, there isn't a single seat available for people to sit. ProMed, which monitors global infectious diseases, their alarm, which was issued on late Tuesday, ProMed also actually had alerted back in late December 2019 about this mysterious virus coming out of China, which we later found out to be SARS-CoV-2. And that gave the alert to many doctors, scientists, including senior officials at the World Health Organization. Now, of course, the regime will downplay this, especially if the severity continues to be high. And so the pattern goes, right? The less we hear, the more problematic it is. Now, ProMed says this, right? It is not at all clear when this outbreak started, as it would be unusual for so many children to be affected so quickly. The report does not say that any adults were affected, suggesting that the exposure could be from schools. However, this is the very interesting thing, right? The officials, they're claiming this to be some sort of a quote-unquote walking pneumonia or mycoplasmic pneumonia, which is this is a type of infection caused by an organism, microorganism. It's called mycoplasma. That's a subgroup type of thing for bacteria. But words of caution from Dr. Ding says here, quote, "This is a vague lumping, right? We don't know the infectious agent. This is not the typical walking pneumonia, since this new outbreak is not mild." Now, according to the infection experts that I was speaking with, they tell me that in China, the so-called walking pneumonia usually is not a highly transmissible disease, at least not in the past, unlike what's being experienced right now between kids. It's also not even listed in the top respiratory transmissible diseases list in China. So he thinks that it's very likely that this is a cover-up from the CCP toward the real cause. Could be COVID, could be something else. He says it's also possible that short bacteria like organisms like mycoplasma can develop mutations to cause infections, but that would be a very long period of time. Unlike previous waves of, say, COVID or other types of infections in China, which targeted older people, this time they're targeting children, right? Back in winter of 2022, we saw the COVID situation killed many older people across China with the whole crematorium situation. But this one is now happening to kids, 7 to 8 year olds. What's interesting, though, in our discussion is that he noted prior to the 2003 SARS outbreak, before that, coronaviruses were also not the major cause for infectious diseases until the strain that became what was known as the SARS virus. That one actually had the mutation suitable for infecting people. So, of course, we cannot discount the full potential of this so-called mycoplasma pneumonia to be the actual cause, but compared to other types, which likely is in the cover-up, this one seems to be relatively low. Now, before we continue, let me introduce you to my sponsor for today's video. If there is one supplement you want to get incorporated into your diet, it's a good omega-3 supplement. It's the best all-around defender for your health. It reduces inflammation, cholesterol, improves eyesight, and reduces risk for heart problems, as well as helps with joint pain, among other benefits. Today, I want to introduce you to Puritan's green vegetables. Puritan gets their ingredients straight from the high mountains of South Korea, and the omega oils are extracted from purslane and perilla seeds. It's 100% vegan. Now, personally, I've been using Omega for about 9 years, close to 10 years now. I've recently switched to Puritan for about a few weeks now. Here's why. We mostly get our Omegas from fish, right? But that's not the best case for everyone, especially there's the aftertaste. It might not be suitable for vegetarians or vegan. So the most important part, right, we often forget is the actual concentration for Omegas. Puritan soft gels have a much higher content for Omega-3, 6, 7, and 9 than many of the brands out there. And some say that they notice there's less hair loss, more energy, lower cholesterol levels, and overall improved health. I think the best part for me is the lack of inflammation or the reduction of inflammation. Other brands also they use this high heat method to extract the oil, which in turn creates a lot of harmful byproducts. Puritan's green vegetable is done using a patented method of supercritical carbon dioxide low temperature extraction, so it preserves the natural properties and maintains high purities. First of its kind. So get it for yourself or as a gift to your loved ones ahead of the holiday season. Use my code DZ2023 and you can receive free shipping globally. Check out my link in the description and comment today. All right, according to the state media back in October, this new strain is more drug resistant. And a study from February of 2022 found that macrolide resistance was identified in more than 80% of mycoplasma pneumonia found in children hospitalized with the bacteria in China. Now, macrolide is a class of bacterial drugs, so it's drug resistant somehow. Also, it's very likely to be some sort of a co-infection or cross-infection between respiratory viruses, seasonal flu, COVID, and other unidentified infections. And because we know that since December of last year, the CCP has eliminated all COVID-related cases or stopped calling them COVID infections. And so what we're seeing now with videos online is that the same hospital conditions are happening across China, right? Not just one hospital. It's even happening in Vietnam too, where it ran out of hospital beds, so now they're using hammock instead. So just based on the distance alone, Vietnam and China, they're thousands of kilometers apart, yet experiencing the same thing. Kids are getting pneumonia-like symptoms. We have to watch for what's to come next. Now, many may call this to be the same as the early days of the COVID infection, right, back in Wuhan. People in China, especially the Chinese government, didn't officially recognize this as a new type of pandemic. It was like that back in 2019 too. But look how many months it took. Not a lot before it spiraled out of control. So I hope this is nothing, right? But if we are already to see something, right, we're seeing it in Vietnam, across China, then it's likely that this is going to pop up in other countries too. Now, let's talk about the rumor flying around that Xi Jinping apparently begged Biden for $900 billion in bailout. Now, the source of this traces to Mr. Gregory Copley, who wrote that a source in China had revealed that this happened during the two meetings in San Francisco, which took place last week. Now, here's the original words. Quote, a significant source in the PRC has reported that Xi formally asked the U.S. president to arrange an urgent $900 billion in bailout for the communist Chinese economy. And this specific detail could not be confirmed, but it fitted with the sudden and urgent campaign to stop Beijing's bellicosity towards the U.S. and to insist that the two could be friends and partners. Now, is this situation possible? Well, from my perspective, it's very unlikely. In fact, we don't even know if Biden agreed to this or not. But such a deal would never go silently. We would be hearing about this. This is like the #1 news across the world if it actually took place. First of all, where would Biden get his $900 billion from? To approve such a hefty spending in bailout would actually mean direct funding or somehow an economic agreement. For example, buy more export from China, mounting to that $900 billion in values, or it somehow has to come from somewhere, right? Either way, it won't go undetected. So to put this into perspective, the US Congress appropriated a total of $113 billion for Ukraine, which a country on the side of the United States, when all things are considered, is technically an ally in this war, right? So China would receive 9 times that. Or in 2022, the US defense budget was about $1.3 trillion. And that would be 69% of the US defense spending to its number one adversary. Or last year, the same thing, right? Federal government spent about $6.13 trillion. 15% of the overall federal budget would go to China if that was the case. That's never going to work with the American voters, or Congress, or a sitting presidential cabinet. So what I think really happened is an anti-Xi faction in China put out this information and tried to basically sabotage the image of the dictator, which is Xi Jinping, in an attempt to try to get help from the United States and beg for some sort of a policy change on China's economy, which of course we know is failing. China's economy requires full assistance from the United States if it wants to function properly. And that's an objective fact. So while we're there, definitely Xi Jinping asked Biden to do something about it, but I don't think he asked for $900 billion directly. All right, before we finish our day, I just wanted to give a few moments to thank our viewers who had donated to me recently. So here are the 4 names I want to thank: Calvin Rojas, Menghan Lee, Della Mercer, and Eric Geisner. Thank you guys so much for your support, and your help and your contribution really helps us to keep the channel going. And thank you guys again for watching for the past year or so since our channel has basically started and then grew over the past few months. So thank you guys so much for watching. And if you want to support this channel, consider making a tax-deductible contribution, and the link is in the description below. If you enjoyed the content today, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode, and as well as happy Thanksgiving to those in the US. And for the rest of the world, I guess it's just another day. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.